Do you want me to put this on so you can see chat?
If you like. So, yeah. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Star Trek
Oh, hold a
collectible
second.
card game from Decipher. Are we not live?
We were, but it was holding it on the of you go like the picture of that for a second. You're good now.
Okay, we're good now.
It just when we sometimes it freezes the photo.
So this is
Right.
this is an interesting card game. It's one that I rather enjoyed in my youth, and still like from time to time. The basic plan is to mimic an episode of Star Trek. Well, usually a little bit more than an episode. Actually, you're supposed to gain 100 points. It requires more sap than most collectible card games or trading card games do today. You have to build a space line before you start, seed it with dilemmas, set your outpost, sometimes some extra side decks indoors, and then start playing. So, one of the criticisms with the game later on as it became more streamlined in the gameplay and more complex in the setup was that it took longer to set up than it did to actually play. When the first set came out, it wasn't really that way, unless you took a whole lot of time strategizing where you wanted specific dilemmas, which could happen sometimes. But this game, here I'll show you the card back, if you see them around, was, I'll just leave this here for now.
We had somebody pop in and then they left. I don't know.
This game is one that has quite a history to it. It's one of Decipher's big three most popular card games that they had the most success with. It was the first one they came out with of those as well. Actually, it might have been the first collectible card game of all. I'm not entirely sure of that. I know they were into some board games, how to host mystery type stuff early on as well. Some say this game plays almost like a board game in some respects. The first release of this game came out in 1994. So as far as card games go, it was very early. Magic the Gathering is the first game that released of that kind, basically, and it really took off quick in 1993, later half of 1993, by the way. Whereas this game here, released in 1994, the real boom when other card games started coming out in that field happened in 1995. So this one was out before most. And I remember one of my friends finding it at a Star Trek convention long before I was interested in it at the time. And he was interested in it mainly as a collectible, not as a game. But it serves both quite nicely. A lot of these cards are popular to get autographed if you do go to a convention where there are actors who played in any of the shows around. And as you can see, it had a pretty long run. There's something else I wanted to get out here. But that's okay. I can grab it if I need it. So yeah. The game started with Premiere. So this is a box of Premiere.
Hello, Rodrigo. Welcome in.
They actually had four different printings of this set. One black bordered was the first one. Then they had two white border printings, one in 94, one in 95. So that's you can tell those two apart. And they also released a collector's edition silver bordered tin, which had the entire set, just one of each. So, technically speaking, those are the four major print runs of Premiere. And if you want to
just so you can see the chat,
try playing this game,
is it charged enough?
Perhaps.
Okay.
If you want to try playing this game, that's actually where I recommend you begin. There were just as many sets, roughly at least, for this game as there were for the Star Wars CCG, which was even more popular in its day. But Star Trek lasted longer. Star Wars started in 95, so this had a year head start. And after Decipher lost the license for Star Wars in 2001, this game continued for at least another year after that with mains releases, and then a special release or two after that as well. and then they actually transferred it into a new version, a second edition of the Star Trek CCG. That one I'm not as familiar with, but basically they streamlined it to try to make it a quicker play experience. So I've got some samples here. How well can you see these?
I can bring this a little closer if you need me
so
to.
there was the premiere, which is the first one, the first set that released. And this was, back when it started, they didn't know how successful this was going to get. So, you can see it's Star Trek The Next Generation customizable card game. And for this first set, it's based entirely around Star Trek The Next Generation, the classic TV show from the late 80s, early 90s. All the main characters for the bridge crew, with a few minor exceptions. Chief O'Brien wasn't in this set, for example. Neither was Guinan. They came in Fajo Collection special release a little bit later on. But the main characters were all there. You had the Enterprise. This set was based around the Alpha Quadrant. You had the Romulans, you had the Klingons, you had the Federation, and you had a scattering of other aliens like the Ferengi and Cardassians, but they were as non-aligned. They weren't any other factions than the main three at this time. And it's a relatively simple way to start and learn the game. If you want to start from sealed product, which is, I think, the best way to learn the game as it was released and as it was intended, this type of box are still relatively easy to find and not too expensive. All the boxes I have here, by the way, are at or below what their MSRP would have been when they released their regular pricing. Some of the more popular sets have gone up in value and are now much harder to find, more expensive. I'd say none of it's easy to find anymore, but they're still around, and if you go digging, most of the ones on the table here you can get for under what they would have cost when they came out as brand new releases. Like I said, this is probably the cheapest of the bunch for the boxes. You can get White Border Premiere from the later release, 1995 release, which is the same versions, a couple little spelling corrections, I think. Nothing major.
Boyd and Becca are here.
I think I found this one for $25 US. And then, of course, shipping and whatnot to get it here. But this was very economical, 36 packs in this box. The first early sets were all that format. The second set, Alternate Universe, was also based entirely off The Next Generation. This set introduced a lot of unusual phenomena that weren't in the regular timeline, but that you came across in episodes. Like the famous episode where they encountered the Enterprise C, for example. They introduced a ultra-rare card for the first time in this set, the Future Enterprise, from the series final, at the end of Season 7, for those of you who are familiar with it. If you are familiar, or even if you're not, and would like to learn more about Star Trek The Next Generation, by the way, and actually the whole Star Trek series, there's a couple of YouTubers I've been watching with a channel called Target Audience who've been going through year by year, chronologically, as the stuff came out. They're through the original series. They're almost getting close to the end of the third season of Next Generation now. They've watched the first 5, I think, movies. And, I find them very amusing, and they give a good overview of the show. What was I saying? So yeah, this set here, very, very worthwhile to pick up as well. It's a little bit more expensive, but still one of the more economical sets to get. I think a box of this ran about, wouldn't hurt, ran about $35 for 36 packs. And
do you want water or a pop or something?
Water's good. The Future Enterprise, the ultra rare chase card in this, is probably worth about $30 or $40. The main characters from the first set, the higher the rank, generally the more expensive. So if you got Captain Picard or the Enterprise itself, you might get above between $5 and $10 in value, and then they sort of go down. Commander Riker, Data, they might get you about $5. And then some of the lower ranked crew members, maybe below $5. That's sort of the price range for the first set, at least in this edition. If you find the Black Border, which is more expensive, obviously it's more. The next set that came out, they didn't have an ultra rare like they did for Alternate Universe. It was Q Continuum. Same format of box, a little more expensive again. And I don't actually recommend that one. I've got these. I'm hoping to do some box openings starting with our 1,000 subscriber celebration event. And we'll go through some of these roughly chronologically as well. And get a feel just for openings. I did play a game of this with Thomas last summer. We opened one of these boxes here and went through, sorted them, built 2 decks. Thomas built a Klingon deck, I built a Federation deck, and we played a game or two.
Hey, Tank, how's it going?
Thomas was very much into combat and space, so he built a small Klingon armada and came after to try and destroy my ships before I could solve the missions. The usual way of winning this game is by getting enough points, by beating missions. There's a few other ways you can get points, but mainly it's through beating missions. Thomas, by destroying my ship and getting ahead on the board, would basically lock me out of the game, and then he could win at his leisure. So yeah. So those are the first 3 main sets. Was the original Premiere Edition, Alternate Universe, which, again, is key because it lets you use a lot of the later stuff as well. A lot of things that just aren't in the regular timeline, like the Enterprise, once they introduced Deep Space Nine, it could go there, the people can interact fairly regularly. But if it's people from a different time, if it's people from an alternate universe of some sort, then you need the Alternate Universe Gateway, which was in this, and it was also featured in some starter decks and stuff they came out with later too, to be able to play those cards. But it was still easier than a lot of other separate categories that came out with. By the time you get to Voyager and they're in a different quadrant, to get them to meet up would be much more difficult, for example. But for the Star Trek, the Next Generation, they had those first 3 sets. And then they were making plans for a 4th set. They were going to do a set based on the holodeck. That got delayed because around that time was when the movie came out, Star Trek First Contact, which was the second film based on Star Trek The Next Generation. The series had been over before they started this card game. And they wanted to get the rights to the other series as well. But they got an in with this film. So then the 4th set they released was Star Trek based around the First Contact film. And while these 3 first sets were based off Federation, Romulans, and Klingons, First Contact was a very popular set. It was based off essentially just the Federation and the Borg. So you had your first new affiliation that was introduced. The Borg are very strong. Most of the early ships that you would see in this game have single-digit, usually for bigger ships, high single-digit shields and weapons and things. Borg cubes, you're looking at 24 weapons, 24 shields, much stronger types of enemies. And so they were popular for that, although they had very different rules for people to learn. The set also included a lot of other cards, which made the game just run more smoothly. Some examples of those I've got right here. Cards like Assigned Mission Specialists would allow you...
Here, it's a little blurry.
Would allow you to go and get 2 personnel to start and play, so you can see some of the streamlining more that would help you develop your game more quickly for the actual game.
I can bring it closer if you want to.
Cards like Mirror Image.
There you go.
Which other cards that had been very powerful from Premiere, like Red Alerts and Kivis Fajos, this card would let you get the effect too whenever your opponent used one for a certain amount of time anyway, which for some of those cards was all you needed. So these helped make the game run much more smoothly, even out some strategies. You had other cards like Balancing Act, which was good for dealing with deck building strategies which relied on all planet or all space missions. made that a far more difficult strategy to work with. And one thing I forgot to mention from the earlier set, Q Continuum, probably the single biggest influence that set had was things like Sung-type Android, which was a non-aligned Android, which any affiliation could use. Useful to have for a lot of different situations, because you could select its main skill.
Closer to, yeah, there you go.
And gender. And this card, Q's Tent.
Okay,
which
it's focusing on your face now.
Which
there you go.
allowed you to have a side deck of extra cards. Now you could either play a bunch of these in your deck, and every time you drew one, go into your side deck and pick just the card you wanted, or more people I knew would just run one of these to put cards in that you wanted to download. And that was a new feature that started to come out around the time of, mainly around the time of First Contact as well, where you would play a character who can download a certain device or interrupt. And you can go then pull it from your side deck and you don't have to worry about them gumming up your main deck. So, yeah, a box of Q's Continuum I think you can get for about $50. And the most valuable card in that set is, I think, $2, and it's an uncommon. The rares all go for like $1. A Q's Tent is worth $1. It's a common. But you'd be better off just grabbing a couple of Q's Tents and some of the other key commons from that set. After the success of First Contact, it was a very popular set, as I mentioned before, did a lot for the game. And through the contracting they got with promoting the film, they got the rights to do Deep Space Nine. Their 5th set was based around that show. The core set, Deep Space Nine itself, very popular and is becoming more difficult to find now, including the next 2 sets that followed it, same deal. They were the Dominion, which well, let's start with Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine introduced, the set was built around the Federation again, along with 2 new groups again. So the 4th one was the Borg. Then you got the 5th and 6th factions added were the Cardassians and the Bajorans. And you got treaty, like the Bajoran Treaty, you could seed directly in play just during the setup phase, so you didn't have to worry about finding it. That made it very appealing for people who wanted to run dual affiliations. The Bajorans, in terms of their ship stats, well, were the weakest of the 3. They struggled with that even up to the present day. They didn't really start to get strong ships until sometime later. The Cardassians, a little bit weaker than the other 3 main, the Klingons, the Romulans, and the Federation, but closer. They also had a little bit more strategy options. There was rules around the station as well, where you could bring station sites in, and you could do some neat stuff that way. Honestly, most people I know didn't bother. It was just more complication than it was worth for gameplay, generally speaking. The next set that came out was the Dominion. That's where they introduced the Defiant. The Federation got its first cloaking device ship. Very nice. I might actually have that here handy. Not in this pile. But the Defiant should be right here. So you can see typical stat lines, much less than a 24, 8 or something like that a Borg cube would have. But still, a nice ship, and having a cloaking device is very nice. For comparison as well, here was the Enterprise from Premiere, 989, and the Enterprise E from First Contact, which was its successor ship, which they made even stronger. But it had, they came out with a special movie icon, staffing icon, so it was actually a lot harder to staff unless you got a lot of the personnel specifically from there. There weren't a lot of repeat personnel versions, generally speaking, after that. They typically went from show to show, and you would get sometimes 2 or 3 different versions of a specific character, but either they were alternate universe versions. They didn't usually conflict with each other. It was easy to play with the one you thought best. So that was the Dominion I mentioned, which introduced the Dominion as a faction as well. Following the Dominion, you got Blaze of Glory. This was a very popular set as well for two reasons, I would say. One, it was a very Klingon-heavy set, and the Klingons were a popular group to play, especially among people I know. My brother was a big fan of the Klingons. It was also the only set in the entire run, except for Reflections, which was a bit of a separate case. It was reprints from the first 6 sets, I believe, where they put extra cards in, plus there was a series of foils in that one. But as a set, so in Reflections, you could get cards from Premier, Alternate Universe, Juice Continuum, Deep Space Nine, Dominion, First Contact, and you got your special foil, which was a rare that was usually well known from those previous sets. The Dominion, I'm getting my words mixed. Blaze of Glory also had foils of the cards, at least some of the more popular cards of the set, in the set itself. And it was the only set they did that with. So those packs are probably even more expensive than the other Deep Space Nine base sets that we've talked about so far.
I asked a question.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I'd have to say for me...
No, before that. That was back there.
What is everyone's favorite Star Trek series?
Or movie.
Yeah. This game had a long enough run that it was able to handle several of these series. So we've already talked about how it's done with the Next Generation here and now into Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, those first 3 sets especially, along with First Contact, I would say, that was sort of the height of popularity that this game reached. The game rules hadn't gotten too complicated yet, although they were definitely getting more complex as each set came out. Blaze of Glory also introduced the Battle Bridge, which made combat mechanics between ships
You have a question.
a little bit more developed as well. How does it play, though? I'd say it plays quite well. But I gave a brief overview before. Basically, each player has a number of set missions that they're going to try and beat. You deal them out one at a time and build a space line. You put dilemmas under your opponent's missions that they're going to have to overcome before they can beat it. You set out your outpost, whatever other setup cards you've got, and then you draw your hands and you start playing. And you can play 1 card a turn unless you have other effects that let you play more. You build up a ship with some crew that staff it, and you go to different space line locations and try and overcome the missions.
I can put the link in the
That's the basic overview
in the description
how the game plays.
Later from when you tried to play it with Thomas, when you tried to teach Thomas how to play.
That was a Star Trek game we recorded. We didn't. Star Wars game we recorded.
That was a Star Trek?
That wasn't Star Trek.
You sure?
We played Star Trek at your mom's last summer.
Oh, I'm getting them mixed up.
Yes,
okay, so never mind. Sorry. Ignore me.
I'm hoping we can do another game of this with Thomas at some point as well.
Yeah. Along
with some openings in the future. I do have one thing I'd like to open tonight, though, once we get through the overview. Where was I?
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine and Blaze of Glory in particular, which introduced the Battle Bridge, which increased the ship-to-ship combat mechanics. Was great for the Klingons, introduced the foils. That was, I'd say, about the height of the game. The Dominion, by the way, had 4 secret ultra rares. They were all preview cards to come out in future sets. There was Admiral Riker from the original series. There was Worf, son of Borg, as a Klingon. There was Captain James T. Kirk. There was, what was the last one? I think 7 of 9? Might have been 7 of 9 as the Borg from Voyager. They were really starting to look towards expanding to some of these other series. The last of the purely Deep Space Nine sets to come out, or largely I would say, was Rules of Acquisition here. Now this was a very Ferengi-centric set. And this one was the first one that I did miss. I've never actually opened a pack of this myself. Like I said, we usually played the first 4 affiliations. I didn't get heavily into the Bajorans, and Dave, my brother, tried the Cardassians for a bit. But mainly when we played, it was the Klingons, the Federation, and the Romulans, and occasionally when I felt mean, I would pull out my Borg deck, which is very different, but powerful. So, yeah, rules of acquisition. This one is probably more on the lines of the expense of the Q Continuum. There's a couple of cards in it that are worth a little bit more, but again, no ultra rares in this set. I just have never opened it, so to me, this is going to be a brand new experience when we get to this one, and I'm looking forward to that a bit myself, even though it'll be admittedly a little self-indulgent. If you're trying to try this game for your first time, I would not recommend this set. It is a bit of an oddball set. However, then we get into what I think is one of the more interesting features of this game, in terms of if you're looking for a place to start playing. The trouble with Tribbles is where they introduced cards from the original series. So you had the main 7 crew: Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Uhura, Chekhov, and Sulu. You had a few other things as well. You can see these boxes, these smaller boxes like the Ferengi and this one, they only have 30 packs of them per box, unlike the first ones. They are, again, from a different time, so you'd need to use an alternate universe door to get them into play. However, there is an ultra rare in this set, which holds more value than most of the ones I've talked about so far. That's Dr. McCoy. Dr. McCoy, the actor who played Dr. McCoy, his name's escaping me at the moment. Shoot. Anyway, his actor passed away at the time they were preparing the set for release. So they switched which card was going to be the ultra rare. I think it was originally going to be James T. Kirk. And they swapped it and made Dr. McCoy the ultra rare. And Dr. McCoy in this set, there's a bit of power creep going on. He's a very, very powerful doctor. Let's just see if I can find for a quick comparison here.
I don't know why I can't even think of his name either.
DeForest Kelly. DeForest Kelly was the doctor's name. So yeah, here's Benjamin Sisko from Deep Space Nine, another classic card. Here you started to get more cards who are, like, he's an officer and an engineer. So you got dual classifications on some characters. Let's show that for... Where's the doctors? Alright. This should be an example of how cards got a little bit stronger over time. Dr. Beverly Crusher from Premiere. Decent card for sure. Very strong in the early days of the game. Double medical, biology, exobiology. Nice card. By the time Deep Space Nine came out around, you got Dr. Julian Bashir. Much higher cunning. Triple medical. Along with the exobiology and biology, and a special download for a card which usually didn't do a whole lot, as I recall. Then the ultra rare from Trouble with Tribbles was Dr. McCoy. This guy, in terms of the actual stats, he's got exobiology ×2, biology, and double medical. Not that much more, but his special skill to be able to cancel any medical related dilemma that you encounter was absolutely bonkers. You could do a lot with this, just cancel whatever dilemma you were encountering that was medical required before you even got to, the next one. He also had the ability to download any I'm a doctor, not a whatever card. At the time this released, I think there was only 2 of those. There was one in First Contact, Doctor, I'm a doctor, not a doorstop, which let you go get the hologram doctor, which was later featured in Voyager, or any emergency EMH. and then there was one that came out in this set as well. And then there was another one printed later in a different set. So eventually you got a choice of cards to download there too, on top of his already strong cards. So you could definitely see the power creep happening in this game by this point. But it was still good fun. And honestly, other than Premiere, I'd say that Trouble with Tribbles might be one of the more interesting sets to start with. It's about the same price a box as Alternate Universe, but like I say, the Dr. McCoy is worth far more than the Future Enterprise, much more useful and easy to use. The Future Enterprise, very strong ship, but you need 3 Alternate Universe crew to staff it. It's tough to get going. Also, the Trouble with Tribbles came with pre-constructed starter decks. These are also fairly affordable and easy to find, and they come with a lot of the cards from previous sets. So you'll get, in the Klingon deck, some Bathlets and some of the, typical efficient starships from earlier sets. Just the common ones, but still enough to get you going. You get a complete set of space missions. Each one comes with a face card, so you get a version of Benjamin Sisko in this one for the Federation. Again, affordable. They give you the Ultimate Universe door. They give you pretty much everything you need to get going in the game. And I'm sure you could find a pair of these for under $10 online if you look around. The set itself is based around the Deep Space Nine episode, primarily, where they go back in time for the Star Trek anniversary and revisited the Tribbles episode from the original series. So that's how they got an excuse to bring in the original series people. And because it's based around that episode, it also features most of the Deep Space Nine crew. So you've got the crew from both Deep Space Nine and Trouble with Tribbles in this set. It does feature a few other original series highlights from other episodes. Like it's got the Romulans from Balance of Terror in there.
Is that the one you first ordered with your brother to open up and split?
It was, yeah. My brother and I opened a few boxes of this last year.
Did you buy a case or something like that, or?
Yeah, we had very good luck with our case, really. Although we weren't quite able to complete the set. We were short 2 rares by the time we opened.
Did you end up buying them?
Everything. Yes, I ended up filling out the set.
Okay.
Maybe I'll go through that if people are
Emmy
interested.
says, "Oh, Star Trek! I finished watching the animated one on Netflix."
The animated one is probably the only early-ish one that I haven't seen. I've heard some interesting things about it, and it definitely influenced some of the later ones.
Is that old animated or new animated? Because
old animated. I think there is a new animated show as well.
Yeah.
But this was an older animated.
She might be talking about the new one.
I think it's the newer one called Lower Decks.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. After the Trouble with Tribbles, they released another one, Mirror Mirror, which is also based around a combination of the original series and Deep Space Nine. This one, I've heard, has got the best rates if you're just looking to collect and want versions of main characters. Because it's got both those time periods as well, you've got the original crew again in their alternate universe forms, plus they flushed out some other characters which didn't make it into Tribbles with Tribbles, like Lieutenant Kyle and Nurse Chapel. They weren't in Trouble with Tribbles, but they're both in Mirror Mirror here. Plus you've got the crew from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Emmy.
Deep Space Nine, there were a few episodes where they had contact with the Mirror Universe that had first shown up in the original series as well. So that's what this box is around. And it costs about the same as the Trouble with Tribbles, to be honest. But for gameplay, the cards in Trouble with Tribbles are easier to use. The Mirror Universe cards, it takes more work to get them into the main universe. There aren't that many missions in the Mirror Universe that you can get points at. So it's a little bit more awkward to play with. You can't just bring them in to the alternate universe store like you can the old.
Emmy says she misses
ones.
Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine was a great show. I was involved at university by the time it got into its later seasons, I think, and I didn't follow the last couple seasons of the story, which got more complicated and certainly more. The Next Generation was very episodic. There was changes that went on show to show, episode to episode, and season to season that continued over. But it was much more episodic than Deep Space Nine became. Deep Space Nine had a much more thorough through story.
Does anybody remember when they tried doing the movie marathons on TV?
Oh, they did movie marathons.
I tried to stay up, and I couldn't. I fell asleep.
They also did top 10 shows for, I
Yeah.
think, definitely, I remember them doing that for the Next Generation and the original series. They probably did it for Deep Space
The
Nine.
movie with the whales is my favorite out of the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
When they went back in time to get the whales.
It's popular
It's my favorite one.
for many people. Then after this one, they transitioned to Star Trek Voyager. And again, from what I've heard, this is another set I wasn't playing heavily at the time, so I'm looking forward to opening one of these for the first time.
I watched a little bit of this, but not a lot.
Yeah. Of the sets that I've shown sealed product for here, this one is the more expensive. This one is about the same still now as it would have been when the product first released. So you're looking at probably close to $120 a box
Was Star Trek
for
Paramount?
Star Trek Voyager.
Was that the one that was it Paramount?
It was. I think
Okay.
they've recently sold it or parts of it or something. But I've heard there's some dealings going on.
No, because we have Paramount Plus, and that's what we watch it on.
But yeah, so they introduced Voyager. Here, the mythic rare, or not mythic rare.
Oh yeah,
ultra
there's
rare
a symbol
was
that says Paramount right there.
the champion guy here with the actor for The Rock was the mythic rare in this set.
The Rock was in there,
It's the ultra rare, so good luck pulling it.
but The Rock was in Star Trek.
Yeah, he was a guest in one episode.
Oh,
Anyway, there's lots of guest stars who joined the Star Trek in various
Yeah.
shows. So yeah, I don't know
oh,
a lot about
Kitty
this one,
again, Becca.
but that's another one that I'm hoping to dig into for my own indulgence at some point, because it's a corner of the universe that I haven't explored much myself. But again, I've heard they made some very strong guards
You sure
in that set. Yes, I did.
Okay.
After that, they expanded their Voyager by making another Borg-based set. So this one is simply called the Borg. It's got some of the other races that they encountered in the Delta
Oh, that
Quadrant.
okay. Sorry, that's there's some reflection.
Vidians.
There you go.
And others. I've opened a little bit of that, and I haven't opened a lot because I did open quite a bit of the First Contact back in the day. They reskinned some of the cards, they just with new pictures and such, but same functionally. They did tweak some of the cards and came out with new versions as well, but a lot of the actual Borg stuff I already had from my First Contact days, so I didn't get heavily into that one either. I think the mythic, the ultra rare in that set is Reginald Barclay, who helped make contact with Voyager in one of the later episodes. After that, they finally returned to the holodeck set that they'd been thinking about back in the Next Generation series. And because they'd had all this experience by this point, they were able to do holodeck-based cards from a bunch of these different...
Emmy said she was going to ask a question, then you answered it before she got to ask.
Oh, well, that works well then. I'm glad we anticipated something. Where was I?
Sorry.
The holodeck set. Yeah.
Holodeck. That was my favorite part about Star Trek.
Holodeck Adventures is now a quite expensive box to find. If you can, it's still around a little bit, but it's getting expensive. Not the most expensive set in the series by any means, but
that was just my favorite part about Star Trek.
But yeah, that set featured people from Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, and Voyager. The ultra rare in that one I think was Dixon Hill.
Okay.
So Picard's persona from there. This is the wrong pile. What was I looking for with regard to holodeck? I don't remember now.
I just loved...
Puzzled.
I used to use my imagination a lot for playing. We'd imagine we're in a different world, just playing stuff. So we'd imagine that we were in the holodeck all the time, doing stuff on the holodeck. It was fun.
Yeah. So from the First Contact, I've got some of the Borg stuff. So here's a Borg cube from First Contact, and they basically just reprinted the same card, except they gave it art from the Voyager show. Here's the Borg Queen. The Borg Queen they made a version of in the Borg as well, except they tweaked its abilities.
Lower it a little bit. Just lower it a little bit.
Sorry. Its download ability, I think, changed. But
yeah, Sally was saying she was curious how much Sally or Emmy she was curious how much of each set you opened, then realized you were saying it with your explanation.
Yeah, when I first started this game, I built my first deck right out of a common bin from my local card game store. And I built a Federation and Klingon deck out of the common bin, and I enhanced it over time, buying a couple of uncommons here and there, and buying the odd pack. When Alternate Universe came out, I got a couple packs of that. Continuum came out, I got a couple packs of that. And I would trade. I was playing a lot of other card games, so if I were having trouble making a deal in Magic the Gathering, oh, well, we've got a difference in value here, and they would throw in sometimes some Star Trek or Star Wars cards, and I built up my collection that way too. So that's, I think, how I got my first Dr. Beverly Crusher, was through a trade from somebody, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I learned and grew with the game, especially through those first 4 sets, and then I took a bit of a break through the earliest DS9, came back for Blaze of Glory, and then I was out of it for a while. The only other booster box after Holodeck Adventures where they released a set that you could get in booster packs was the Motion Pictures. They'd already done a set based on First Contact, so that film isn't featured much in the Motion Pictures. It's mainly based off of the original 6, based off films from the original series crew, so Star Trek 1 through 6, and then it also featured cards from Generations, and Insurrection was out by then, so those 8 films primarily.
So Emmy was saying, sounds like you had a fun community when you were younger, trade community, or...
We had a decent little play group. I had a few friends my age who played, and my brother had a few friends his age who played. And between the two, groups all meeting at the same store, there was enough to really play a few different games. So here's a basic common from the Motion Picture. This is a Constitution class ship that can download the special icon you see there is from the movie era crew. And with this one, you could go and download a crew right to it. Basically.
What I liked about the ship, the Enterprise, was they could separate the saucer and the other part.
That was
cool.
unique to the Next Generation Enterprise. The other ones couldn't do that. I've also got
anyways, that one I liked. I like it when I did that.
The Mr. Scott from the films as well here, who's got an added special ability that he can fulfill any extra staffing requirement for a ship. So, very good at staffing all kinds of interesting ships, this guy.
He was Canadian, right?
The actor was, yes.
Yeah.
He had actually taken part in the D-Day landing and had lost a finger in the war. So, it is very rare, but you can see in 1 or 2 episodes where they weren't quite able to shoot around his missing finger. Does show up from time to time.
He was, I don't know, I like the new, the other guy that, what's his name? The new Scotty. I didn't mind the new Scotty, but he's probably still my favorite Scotty out of the 2.
Also from the feature films, here's the Genesis device from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I never got Khan. I only opened about 6 or so packs of the Motion Picture. It was a rarer set to find. By that point, they had cut their print runs, sadly, because it was a very interesting set.
So Emmy says Voyager's her fave, but Deep Space Nine is second.
Voyager was a good series. That's probably the one I saw the least of those first ones.
Did they ever
Space
release?
Nine is nice too.
For this game, did they ever release Enterprise when they tried to go back and do the origins of it?
Sorry, I'm getting confused.
So
here.
I'm talking about
Here's
the TV series
General Chang from episode 6.
when they did the Enterprise series with
Yes, I was getting to that.
Okay, sorry. Jumping ahead.
So yeah, I've got a few cards from the motion pictures, but not a lot. They released at the end, as they were getting ready to wrap things up, a few special products that are now very hard to find. One is called All Good Things, and it included a bunch of cards that they just had meant to release at some point but hadn't managed to work into the other sets. So that's where you got Christopher Pike, Lieutenant or Yeoman Rand from the original series. There's some interesting versions of B'Etor from Voyager in there. There's an Admiral Janeway, I believe. A bunch of neat stuff. This was the other card, by the way, from Q Continuum that is quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
Just the Sung type android. That's Lal before she got her outer appearance that she chose from.
There you go.
But when it came into play, you could select its primary skill and gender, so that was quite useful for building your away teams. Also, a fair amount of strength and cunning from a android. And then the last thing that they released for Star Trek, the first edition, was just a little packet release of foil cards from Star Trek Enterprise. So they already had the original series covered. They had Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. So this was the 5th Star Trek series that they made cards for in this game. And I happened to order that. So here's Captain Jonathan Archer, the actor who at the time was known from the show Quantum Leap, among other things. And I remember a few jokes about when that series came out. It wasn't a bad series.
Then he went on to be in one of the NCIS series. But I didn't like where they took that, how they killed off one of the main characters, and then I was done with it.
We did a little one-off episode early on our channel where I went through and talked specifically about the Enterprise collection. It is a bit of an oddball, and it's hard to find information about it online. But I do happen to have a copy, so that's nice. So yeah, overall, I like the game. I've always liked Star Trek. It's a neat counterpoint. It does present, in general, especially the first 2 series, the original series and Next Generation, when Gene Roddenberry was still involved in the creative process, a very positive, almost utopian view of the future, where the main problems that had to be worked out were just interpersonal problems, some philosophical quandaries for how to deal with certain situations, and a few odd, action pieces. This thing's going to destroy people, we need to stop it.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, a more thought-provoking series than things like Star Wars ended up being, and I appreciated that about it. And I think this card game represents it quite well. Like I said, I've only got about half the sets here in terms of sealed product, but that's still a large chunk that's available at its original retail price or lower, compared to a lot of other card games from the era.
Sorry, I'm just trying to do to pan over
the
it.
Star Wars game is almost impossible to find. There's a couple of sets where you could still find close to their original retail price. Most of them are much more expensive now, and much harder to find. Lord of the Rings is starting to edge on the more expensive side too, but still closer to its original retail. This is the only one of the big 3 where you can still find a substantial amount of the product available, even cheaper than it was when it released. And I really appreciate that. And I like this game. I'm looking forward to digging into some more of this as we get the opportunity. I'm trying to remember if there's other things I particularly wanted to show or go over. Here's one of the silver bordered cards that I mentioned. I did There's a hologram of Albert Einstein. I like how they worked in some of these
Oh, that's
little
cool.
bit parts that came out in one episode of The Next Generation. But he got a card, so that's fun. And I was, when I went to university, I was a physics major, so I extra appreciated Albert Einstein.
And then you've got that Einstein Magic the Gathering card too.
I do. And here's a Spock. This Spock wasn't actually in any of these sets. This was one that came in a special promotional two-player game package.
Tank made Void a monkey command.
Nice. And here's the Captain Kirk, the one that was supposed to be the ultra rare for Trouble with Tribbles, but they swapped it over to Dr. McCoy. And he's got a couple of very interesting abilities. Ordinarily, the Federation doesn't initiate combat. But good old Captain Kirk here can ignore that rule and initiate combat if he sees fit. So that's a nice option for the Federation to have. Let's see, was there something else I wanted to mention particularly? Well, there's good old Jean-Luc Picard. And you can see here's the version from Premiere. He was a skill beast from day one. Lots of different abilities. When they came out with the version for First Contact, he lost a couple of abilities but gained a couple of downloads. And of course, you have the different staffing icon for the Enterprise E. So yeah, which one you wanted to play was depending which Enterprise you were running, basically. Both very strong cards. And you've got little things here like over the course of the series, you can go through the evolution of the Enterprise. So here's the Enterprise E from Star Trek First Contact, which I already showed. The Enterprise D from Premiere from The Next Generation. You had the Enterprise C, which showed up in a special episode in The Next Generation where they encountered a time rift and found the Enterprise C. You got the Enterprise B, which was at the very start of Star Trek Generations, the first
You're
film.
moving it too much. It's getting blurry.
The first film that featured the Next Generation people. It was also the last film to feature James Kirk.
You're just moving too much. There you go.
Sorry. This one was actually an uncommon, but it's from that motion picture set, which is hard to find. And then I don't have the Enterprise A from the motion pictures, but I do have Starship Enterprise from the original series.
How many Enterprises did Kirk destroy? Or his crew?
How many did they destroy?
Yeah, because they crashed some.
Well, there's the one that
And damaged
was
some.
lost in... Well, they damaged... Things were always getting damaged, but... I think it was just the one in Star Trek 3.
I thought there was a couple, because they kept getting in trouble for...
Well, they stole the Enterprise, a couple times, and I think. And anyway,
I don't know.
So in terms of an opening to wrap us up here, this is a starter deck 2.
Okay, the reflection of the light.
I have never opened one of these. My understanding is
Do you want to come over
the
here?
original. Yeah, I'll flip the camera so that we can get a closer look here.
You're gonna see me for a second, so don't run away. Hi. We're just gonna change the viewpoint here.
You can just point it down at the table and I can put my hands under it. So I
Okay.
can show this off as I'm opening it.
Oh, I thought you wanted to do it this way.
I think with a deck it's easier to just put it down below.
Alright. Oh,
So,
sorry. I'm just gonna fix this.
so
There you go. Oh, flip it already. There we go. Is that good?
yeah, so unlike these starter decks here, which were pre-constructed and you know exactly what's going to be in them, or the starter decks that came with Premiere, which were entirely randomized, where you got 2 rares, I think 10 or 12 uncommons, and the rest commons. But you didn't know what you were going to get. You might get
We had some that ran
1
away.
or 2 outposts. You might not.
It's okay.
And you might end up with enough cards from your affiliation to be able to build a deck, odds are you'd need a couple of starter decks to get going. This one was designed to help make that process easier.
Oh my goodness.
The starter deck too. Yeah. So in this one, you get 60 randomized white bordered cards, 2 rares, 13 uncommons, 14 uncommons, so very much like the starter decks from Premiere. In addition, you get 8 fixed black bordered cards that are designed to make it playable, so it shows those here. So you're guaranteed to have an outpost, you're guaranteed to have 6 mission cards, and then this other card, which I think has to do with skills, to make sure you get stuff to beat your missions more easily. So this makes it much easier to be able to build a functioning deck out of the box, as I understand it. I don't know if I have. I know I don't have all of these, at least for the preset cards. So I'm anxious to take a look at this.
I gotta go let the dog in.
My thought is, for our 1000 anniversary stream, would be a good time to start digging into some of this other Star Trek. My plan is to start with Premiere, move to Alternate Universe, then probably Ferengi, Trouble with Tribbles, and the Borg. Those are the 5 that I think offer the best value for people outside of Ferengi, which I've already explained. The Rules of Acquisition set is purely self-indulgence because it's a set I never opened any of myself. But the other 4 are all sets that I think would be good for new players who are just being introduced to the game in terms of the value of the cards you could get and playability. If there's enough interest, then I may do Mirror and Voyager as well. I've got the boxes here. I've never opened Voyager, so that would be another new experience for me. And one of my kids got a hold of that Mirror box, and you can see the outer wrapping is a little bit damaged. Just put this away. So it looks like they've got them nicely divided here. Ooh. It's one of the downsides with an older product. You can tell this has been bouncing around for a little while, and there's a bit of scuffing on this back card. So we've got Memory Wipe, Seeds on Table. Your opponent's cards may mix regardless of affiliation, or plays as on a non-Borg ship. Ship, crew, and ships away teams lose affiliation and become non-aligned. So that will let your crew, if you don't get enough of the same affiliation, work together. You can see this dates from 2000, so this was a product that came out a little bit later to try to streamline things a bit. 2000, as I recall, was a little bit before the no, probably around the same time. When were these released?
Sorry if you pocket message. No, I didn't see anything.
Shoot.
I think you're good, Emmy.
These Trouble with Tribbles starters, 2000. So around the same time. So they were putting more effort into making a product that you could just play out of the box. Our missions, we got a military exercise. This symbol here means non-unique. You could have any number of those in play. If it doesn't have that, it's a unique card, and there's a limit of 1 in play at a time. So that you can see these icons at the bottom. They're the affiliations that can attempt this. So in this case, Romulan, Klingon, Cardassian, and Jem'Hadar. Or the Dominion, I should say. And this is a space mission. So you need a ship, and you need security, leadership, and cunning greater than 28, plus 2 ships with 2 or more staffing icons. So you need a decent sized ship. Okay, I threw you in my pocket for a sec, getting out of the bath, but these cards would have been fun to play. They were, and they still are if you find someone to play with. Like I said, I played a game of this with Thomas last summer, and I hope to play some more with him or some of the other kids as time goes on here. We got Study Commentary Cloud. So this one can be attempted by the Romulans, non-aligned. So that's an interesting way of doing things. Any non-aligned can work with any affiliation, so potentially just have a few non-aligned person in any of your decks. The Cardassians, and the orange icon here is the Ferengi. And you need navigation, science, physics, and computer skill. It's another space mission. Here's a planetary mission. It can be attempted by the Federation, non-aligned Bajorans, or Ferengi. You need science, geology, and computer skill.
That light is reflecting off the cards.
And it's, well, the picture of the card is not the key point at that point, but...
Okay, well, it might
But yeah, these are... Is it just scuffed up a bit? Anyway. There's... It gets an extra plus 10 points if 3 geology or 3 greed present. So that's an interesting effect.
I don't know if I'm eating
Botanical
my freezy
research,
loud,
sorry, was Federation, Klingon,
I'm having a freezy.
or Dominion. Science, medical, and cunning greater than 35. Study Pulsar, Federation, Romulan, or Klingon. Search for weapons. This can be done by Federation, Klingon, Cardassian, Bajoran, or Ferengi. Officer, navigation, and treachery. And then the outpost is a Ferengi trading post, which is interesting. It's got a little bit lower shields. The basic outpost for the Federation has 30 shields, and the Romulan and Klingons have 32. So a little bit lower in the shields. Seed 1, you may also seed 1 Decora face up here, so you can go get a ship, if you've got one. Or build where you have a Ferengi engineered. Each player's non-Borg cards may report and mix aboard regardless of affiliation. So anyone can use this outpost if you put it in play, which could be an advantage to your opponent, but it also allows your cards to mix here. So again, if all you've got is this one starter deck and you don't have enough of one affiliation, this will allow them to cooperate to a certain extent. So that is handy as part of this sort of product. Here's our rule book. I won't go through that right now. Next we're into uncommons. The Traveler Transcendence was a very good card when this game first came out. So placed beside any player's draw deck, that player must draw 1 extra card at the end of each turn. You draw the end of your turn in this game, and that's how you tell your turn is done, is by taking your draw. So being able to draw an extra card each turn will help you find your cards faster, and if you have ways to play cards quicker, that will also help you to get more cards in play. Static Warp Bubble occasionally came up. It wasn't super popular, but that's not an irrelevant ability. Ooh, I should have cleaned my thumbnails. We have an uncommon covert rescue mission for the Romulans. We have an exo comp. If aboard your ship can repair damage in 2 of your full turns without returning to outpost. Ordinarily, you have to go back to your outpost to repair a ship that's damaged. If a ship that's damaged gets damaged again, it's destroyed under the basic combat rules. Like I said, Blaze of Glory and the Battle Bridge side deck made that a little bit more interesting in terms of combat. Mirok, Romulan engineer science personnel, uncommon. This is a really strong dilemma. And again, these cards are random, so they're all from Premier. Must have 2 diplomacy and cunning greater than 30 to communicate and proceed. So this will stop a lot of players in their tracks. Especially, like the Federation has a decent amount of people with diplomacy. Other affiliations, not so much. It can be hard to scrape up 2 diplomacy in a Klingon deck. It's doable, but this deck can certainly slow down some. Anabates, not a very strong personnel, but No staffing icon at all, just science and physics. As a dilemma, cosmic string fragment. Ship is stuck and destroyed unless astrophysics or engineer or navigation aboard. Discard dilemma. Kronos, the Klingon homeworld. And this is a Romulan mission to expose covert supply. How many uncommons did they say was in this? 13. How many have we got so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 8. 9. Nikolai Roshenko. This is Worf's human foster brother. Anthropology, computer skill, and treachery. Small stars for staffing. Have you watched the movie called The Great Wall? I have not. Tayback is a Romulan science officer. Treachery, biology, computer skill. We got Portal Guard. Unless at least one away team member has cunning greater than 7 or honor, entire away team must abort mission and beam up or die. So there's a good way to stop your opponent, unless they've got at least one person with cunning greater than 7 or honor.
We haven't had Netflix in a long time.
We haven't, no. Feckler. There's a ship later on by this. This is a hologram card. 15 strength is nothing to sneeze at, but that's mainly what he offers, because honor and treachery do come up occasionally, but they're not high demand skills, generally speaking. Then we've got, this is a good dilemma. Radioactive garbage scow. Place a top space line here. Mission cannot be done where present. Ships with tractor beams and 2 engineer can tow it to a different location.
Void's comment.
I love that I have no idea what I'm looking at. Well, I don't know. I find it's fun to learn something new sometimes. If you do like the show, you might recognize some of these clips from some certain episodes. But yeah, when this one shows up at a space mission, you just can't beat it. You gotta spend a turn towing this away to a different space land location, assuming you've got the 2 engineers, and then come back and try and complete it again. So this can really slow down an opponent at a space mission. And then wherever you towed it to can't be attempted until it's moved there as well. So there's that. Oh wow. Okay, so we're into our 2 rares.
It's upside down.
And the first one, this is one of the 2 most sought after or biggest impact dilemmas from Premiere.
Do they mix up the rares in these, or are they all the same?
It was uncommons.
Like the deck, like
this
thing.
deck
Yeah.
had the uncommons first, then rares, and then the last part will be commons.
But I'm just saying, are they all the same in every deck? Like if you buy...
No, this is randomized for the most part. It's just those first 8 black bordered cards that were fixed to help make it easier to build a deck. So yeah, we got Q.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. This was
that actor did an amazing job with that character.
He did. And this card...
What is his name?
Was often put on your own mission so that you could get past any dilemmas your opponent put there. It can be played at either space or planet. And if 2 leadership and integrity greater than 60, so if you've got a big crew with 2 leadership there, discard all
John
dilemmas
Delancey.
here.
Okay, that's his name.
So you can get past all the other dilemmas your opponent's put if you throw this one down last. And so it's the first to be encountered, and you've got the crew to get through it. Otherwise, Q allows opponents to rearrange space line locations. That could be annoying. Yeah, but this was definitely one of the 2 most sought after dilemmas in Premiere. And the other one was the Borg ship, which was just big and strong and would come out and attack you. And yeah, there weren't a lot of ships in Premiere that could survive.
Did you have this card yet,
the
or
Borg
no?
ship. I do have 1 copy of this
Okay.
card. So our other rare, wow, we got William T. Riker. That is, one of the strongest dilemmas and a big bridge crew member. So this was a nice starter deck. A very nice starter deck. I couldn't have asked for better rare pulls. William T. Riker, Big Star Officer, Diplomacy, Leadership, Navigation, Honor, and Music. He's got Integrity 8, Cunning 7, Strength 7.
So what were the two best rares in the set?
The two best or highest demand rares in the set are probably the Enterprise and Picard.
Okay.
But, like I said, the Q was one of the two best dilemmas you could get in the set, and Riker is up there with the other bridge crew for sure. He's one of the nicer personnel you can pull. In terms of the Klingons and the Romulans had Sela, who's sought after, and the Klingons had Gowron and probably Kern, maybe Duras. There's a couple, but the main ones that people are looking for are the bridge crew. And Riker definitely qualifies there.
I liked Riker's character. He was fun.
And he is the executive officer of the USS Enterprise. Mzadi to Deanna Troy, gourmet cook,
nice.
And jazz musician.
That's good.
Nice. Alright, now we're into the commons. We got a combat vessel, tachyon detection grid, Klingon Rite of Vengeance, a repair mission, test mission, investigate anomaly, fever emergency. So it looks like there's definitely enough missions to work with here.
I've landed late, but I'm here. Welcome in, Alias.
Darian Wallace, security officer with anthropology. We got a Federation outpost. Honestly, this...
And he's like, I saw Worf.
This would be a good deck to build with. We got a Federation outpost. Our best personnel are Federation so far. Gorta is a non-aligned, so we can work with any of the
Some of us were way early. Yeah, that was my fault for mixing up the time.
Klingon
I set this up really late last night.
We got the Romulan outpost. Yeah, that was a bit of a mix-up. Here's phased matter dilemma. Requires engineer and science to get by. Linda Larson, just a generic engineer with youth. Here's the Federation and Klingon Treaty, which allows your Federation and Klingon cards to mix and work together. Plays on table, so you got to play this from your hand. It doesn't seed like some of the later ones do. Tackett, a Big Star medical officer for the Romulans. Big Star officer with honor for Klingons. Security.
Where's the Mary Sue card? Is there a Mary Sue card, or is that just a term that people use?
I'm not sure what. There's no Mary Sue card that I know of, unless
no, we know some people use the term Mary Sue to mean something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that would
what
apply to in this set, to be honest.
They need a
Tate's a decent science officer, still cartography.
Red Dwarf MTG card set.
Red Dwarf was a different show entirely, I believe. Oh, for Magic the Gathering, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be interesting, for sure. Oh, here's a shuttlecraft. Weapons 2, shields 2. Not very secure way to get your people around, but acrobatic colony.
Oh, the term Mary Sue came from an episode of Star Trek?
I'm not sure where it came from. I don't remember that.
That's what Alias is saying.
Maybe. Here's the USS Galaxy, so the prototype in this elite class of ship, which is the same one as the Enterprise D. And, yeah, decent stats. Almost pretty much as good as you can get for a generic ship in this game. But yeah, we got a Federation outpost, a Galaxy, we got Riker. Looking good for a Federation deck in this. There's an escape pod. Red Alert. This is an infamous card. One of the strongest cards, and certainly one of the strongest commons in this set. Plays on table allows you to play as many ships, personnel, and equipment cards as desired each turn. So, ships, personnel, and equipment. It doesn't let you play extra effects each turn. But this would go very nicely with that, the Traveler Transcendence, which we got in our uncommons, which lets you draw an extra card each turn. And then you can play extra cards each turn. So you could really, really get going if you got those two cards in play. There's a nice medical
Alias says
person.
there
For
was a
Klingons too.
character. There was a character
Space
named
stuff.
Mary Sue.
Okay.
She could do
I
no
don't-
wrong. Everyone loved her in universe, and she could do no wrong.
Interesting. I don't remember that episode. I'll have to look that up one day. This one just repairs a damaged ship. There's a Klingon engineering pad. Gives all your science classification personnel the extra skill of engineer where present. Clag, a big star officer for the Klingons. Klingon espionage on Federation. So plays on your Federation mission. Your Klingon personnel can attempt this mission. Stuff like this could be useful too in the early days. Trying to get a deck together. I used to use a medical kit. I had someone who could download it. Gives all your officer class personnel the extra skill of medical where present. So, if you need a lot of medical, this is a way to get it. Small star officer for the Klingons. There's your medical tricorder. Gives all your science classification personnel the extra skill of medical. A Romulan medical hologram.
I used to pretend that I was
Romulan
flying
officer.
a spaceship, and I drew it like the.
Romulan disruptor.
I drew the panel that you used to fly the ship on the stairs because it was an old house.
Yeah.
And in the little stairwell, I drew my little panel, and that was where I would go pretend I was flying a spaceship.
Nice.
Lots
We
of
used to
imaginative
build
play
Toy
growing up.
Enterprise pieces out of cardboard boxes and stuff to use with our figures. This is a little bit of an infamous one. Female's love interest. Female away team member, random selection, runs off with her lover to the furthest planet where she remains and can be rescued later. Subspace interference. There's a Romulan scout vessel, a little bit stronger than a shuttle and certainly faster as well.
I
Torin.
love the old tricorders. Many useless buttons.
Yeah. Paleth. Romulan engineer.
Is this a card game
and Tor.
or a... I don't know how to say that one. Simulator.
It's a card game. I'm not sure what Bishojo is. But basically, it played as a simulation of episodes of the show, basically. In general, you would set out your space line at the start, see dilemmas underneath each of them, put out an outpost where you would deploy your people from and ships,
With all the love interests.
and then start to bring out your crew.
Then
Yeah,
you
well, that happened frequently in some of
Yeah.
these episodes too, so...
Yeah.
There's also a male love interest card, which we didn't get in this package, which does the same thing for the opposite gender. And then
Hey,
once you had
Zucone, how's it going?
once you had your crew out on your ships, you could move them around, take them to a different spaceline location, try and attempt that mission, and score the points. We had a few missions here, so the points for this mission is 25. For this mission is 30. For this mission here, you can get 35 points. The lowest points on a mission I remember is 20, and the highest is 50, I think, that I can recall, but that's pretty rare. Usually they cap out at around 35, maybe 40. And yeah, you're trying to get to 100 points. Certain dilemmas, if you beat them, can give you 5 or 10 points as well. So yeah,
excuse me,
there's a couple of ways to get points, but generally speaking, the game played well, and it wasn't over too quickly until later sets gave you ways to just download a bunch of your personnel right away, and you could make blisteringly fast attempts at certain missions and really get things off to,
Why are
maybe
there
a turn 2 or 3 win.
Why are there parts upside down? Is that when the numbers are at the top and the bottom? It's probably so your opponent can see the numbers.
Exactly.
Or something, right?
That's on the mission cards here. So if this is my mission, I would play it in the lineup of missions at the start. And my missions, the bigger box faces me, which gives the description, which the other side doesn't have. I get the full icons for Federation, Romulan, Klingon. They just get these little colored dashes to signify which groups can attempt it. They've got the points, they've got the basic requirements. The number 4, the top and bottom, indicates the span. So this ship, for example, has range of 8. So that means if it was next door, it takes 4 span to move here, and then whatever the next missions is, that'll determine how far it can go in one turn. And so basically, yeah, the at the top of the card, it's just a little summary facing your opponent if they wanted to try to steal this mission, which is technically one of my missions if I played it. But if they've got the requirements and the right affiliation, they could try and play it and steal it on me. So that's definitely an option.
Yeah, Emmy says that's actually a good idea, so you aren't always flipping the cards or grabbing them off the board.
Exactly. And then you'd have these next to each other like this. As you built the space line out, up to 6 from each player, basically, unless there was a double. And, yeah, so the space line could get quite wide, a dozen cards wide. And then under each one, you would put the dilemmas.
Was this one? Sorry, I'm just looking at this. Was that Quark?
Yeah, that's Quark.
I loved Quark.
The bartender.
He was my favorite.
I think
my favorite.
I don't know who was the more famous bartender, him or Guinan, but they were both very well-known Star Trek bartenders.
I love Quark.
Who would you rather go to get a beverage from, Quark or Guinan?
Quark.
You'd rather visit Quark?
He's more fun.
Yeah, he might be more fun in some ways. Con! Yes. Well, live long and prosper, folks.
Perspire. He said perspire.
Yes, he did. Well, it's the summertime, so that can apply too.
Yep. Talk to you later. Have a good night, Boyd. Appreciate you.
Yeah. So here were our 2 rare pulls again. William T. Riker and Q, the Dilemma. So very nice rare pulls. I'm very happy with these. I didn't have most of the black preset cards in this set either. And since I'm hoping to open Rules of Acquisition here soon, having a Ferengi trading post is a nice addition to my limited Ferengi holdings.
Yeah,
so
you
that's
did, Tank. I showed it to him, yeah.
So I'm glad to have those. And I couldn't ask for better rares, especially 2 solid rares in that pack.
You said that the holodeck box is getting more expensive or harder to find?
Yes, definitely.
How much is it? Like,
last time I saw one, it was selling for about $700 US.
Ooh, ouch!
On sale sometimes for $600.
No.
Yep, I know.
I would love to go through that because I love the holodeck. That was my favorite part of it.
That'd be about $1,000 Canadian.
Nope.
So yeah, not happening. Nope. Sadly.
Oh, that'd be so much fun.
I did see a place though that had a set of common and uncommon cards from that set available for like $15.
Can you get like any individual packs?
Probably.
They'd be pricey, but
they would be pricey.
It could be fun for a stream just to kind of open 1 or 2 or something like that if we ever hit a milestone.
I toyed with the idea of trying to get at least 1 pack from every expansion, but some of the packs are very hard to find. $100 or more. Not Holodeck Adventure $100 or more, but some of the other ones do get up that high. I think Blaze of Glory and the Motion Picture are the 2 most expensive. They can't keep getting away with it. They can't keep getting away with it. Who's getting away with what now?
Are you talking about just
the
expensive
monkeys?
Cards, or I'm not sure.
I'm not entirely sure. But that's the thing with old out-of-print stuff, is some of it does go up quite a bit. And over time, some of these may go up, But for now, it's still relatively affordable. Are you done
showing off? Should we flip it?
Yeah, I think we should.
My wallet cries. Are you getting interested in more games, Alias?
No, but like I said, the ones I've got here on the table, if you're interested in this game at all, Premiere is still quite affordable. Alternate Universe behind it there, not too bad. And the Trouble with Tribbles stuff, both the precons and the packs, another set I'd recommend as a possibility, aren't too bad.
I can't watch the stream.
They're much cheaper than they were when they were first released anyway. So,
and you got most of these from
I'm planning
Hills,
yeah, most of these came from Hills Wholesale in the States. They've got a decent selection at the better prices that I've seen for this particular game. If you're looking for sealed product, if you're looking for just loose cards or sets or things, right? Category 1 is a great source. There are others out there too that carry them too, but that's one of the ones I know the best.
I don't know. It's just a toy, I think.
Yeah, it's just one of the toys. Anyway, but I think I've covered basically everything I wanted to cover for this particular stream. Do our little starter deck opening. And
wait.
we're...
I was trying to adjust this a little bit first.
Okay, sorry. But thanks for coming and checking this out. I like Star Trek, and like I say, this is one of the more affordable card games still available, as far as I can tell. And it's got a good pedigree. Decipher was a good company that knew what they were doing for the most part.
I can't slide. My chair's at the wrong angle.
They did good with this game. And I had great fun with it.
The majestic beard.
It's even got a...
Should I braid it again?
It's even got a continuing committee, which helps organize events to this day. They even come up with virtual sets to try to keep the interest going. They have
Lord of the Rings starter decks on Hills.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you saw that yet.
No, I haven't had a chance to look through their updated list. But anyway, thanks for joining us, and I hope some of you found this interesting anyway. I do like the Star Trek series, especially these early shows. I loved the original series and Next Generation. I loved most of the films up through, First Contact, Insurrection, around the period this was going. I still was enjoying them. I sort of fell off with the series a bit after that, but
yeah,
I did very much appreciate Deep Space Nine, what I did see of it, and the little I saw of Voyager and Enterprise as well. And I'm glad that all 5 of those series have at least some representation in this game. And I really, really appreciate that.
Oh, your stream last Saturday, you covered Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah, we went through
different Lord of the Rings
Middle
games.
Earth and Lord of the Rings card games. And again, on our big anniversary stream where we have lots of time, I'm hoping to work on something related to that anyway.
Yeah, if anybody does want the starter decks, they actually have them on at for Lord of the Rings. 3 of the starter decks on for fairly inexpensive. On Hills Wholesale Gaming.
Yeah, that's been they were a wholesaler who, when Decipher went under, sadly, in around the year 2007, they bought up a lot of their stock. So
the new Star Trek show.
They've sold out of the Star Wars stuff, but they still have some of the Lord of the Rings and Star Trek sets, and some other things that are.
Do you mean the cartoon or the Picard show, or is there another one? I don't even know. I started to watch Picard, and then they went weird.
We watched the first almost season or so of Picard, and it got weird, and we sort of dropped it. I've heard that season 3 was better, but it had lost me.
It's just when they made these relationships at the very end, and it's like, where did that come from? There was nothing the whole season, and then.
To me, the biggest thing was when
weird.
They just killed off Picard, I think, and they put his essence in an android, or like his memories or something.
Yeah, that was weird too.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff in that show that I didn't really appreciate. But
no.
But I still love a lot of the classic episodes from the 90s and even back to the 60s ones. So
yeah,
it's just a chance for me to revel in some of those older days when I look at this older card game. And like I say, I think it's a very approachable one if anyone is interested in it. So,
and if you are, once we end and set it up, like so everybody can rewatch and stuff, which I recommend, go rewatch it. If you didn't watch from the beginning, because that helps us with watch hours. We're working on it. You don't have to though, but we'd appreciate it. Sorry, it could give us a little bit more light. But yeah, let us know if you want to see more Star Trek, and
I'm looking forward to doing some more openings with these. Like I said, most of these boxes I showed, I'm planning on opening at some point. Depending on how much interest there is, we'll determine how quickly that gets done.
It hurt my nerd self.
Yeah. Again, that starter deck I opened, 2 really good rares.
Yeah.
The Q Dilemma and Riker, couldn't ask for much better than that. So.
What I like about Star Trek is just because I was really into. This is like one of the shows that me and my brothers could sit and watch and enjoy. I used to like all the girly shows, and then my brothers would be like, "No," and then it was one that I enjoyed, and then they forced me to watch some of their shows, and I actually secretly started to like them, but I didn't want to let it on.
The booster box I opened with Thomas last year. The big pulls we got out of that one.
That would have been fun to get on camera.
It would have been. If we were doing that at the time, which we weren't.
No.
But there was some interesting Klingons in that. We got Lursa and Betor. We got Kern. But for the Federation, in that box, we pulled Riker, we pulled Data, we pulled Troy, and we pulled Tasha Yar. So that's 4 significant Ridge crew members. I would say Yar's not one of the biggest, just because Worf sort of replaces her.
I didn't like when they killed her off.
No, but
that made me mad.
But still, that was a pretty good box, and we had fun.
The other guy, O'Neill. Do you remember him?
O'Brien,
not O'Neill.
O'Brien. Yeah, O'Brien was fun, and he was one of the characters who actually got in on 2 of the series because he transferred over to Deep Space Nine. So he was in Next Generation.
Him. He was fun
as a part-time character, not a full-time member of the crew, but fairly regular. And then as a full-time person on Deep Space Nine. And Worf, after they wrapped up with Next Generation, came over to Deep Space Nine as well for the later seasons of that show. So both O'Brien and Worf were in both Next Generation and Deep Space Nine for significant parts of their run.
Says she loves watching Star Trek, Star Wars, One Piece, Pokemon, all kinds of cardboard. You guys are amazing. Well, yeah, I'm glad you are enjoying it. We do have a lot of different interests.
Yeah, I like a lot of variety myself, and I used to play a lot of board games when I was young, so this gives me a chance to pull out some of my old collections and to relive some of those if I can find a good deal.
If we want to kill a little bit of time at all in any of our like 24-hour stream thing that we're going to attempt, we could always rip out a board game.
We could. We've got a few of those too. I've got a Lord of the Rings cooperative board game, which is a lot of fun. We've got some Lord of the Rings Risk. We've got a few different other board games as well.
Yahtzee!
Well, that's more a dice game than a board game, but
we could.
We could.
We could. Oh, we could do. That could be a game.
I've been playing it. Well, I was playing. I got a bit stalled on it. Heroes Quest. They re-released that a year or two ago, and I got a copy and started playing through the first few missions with some of the kids. I think Thomas, Isabel, and Abram. So maybe I'll try that again once they're back.
Alias said, I always had an issue with Worf. He's our combat specialist. Proceeds to get beat unconscious by grunt number 3.
Well, in many episodes, yeah, he doesn't.
They couldn't make it easy, you know?
No, but at the same time, it's meant to show that these are formidable foes half the time.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah, that is a bit of an issue. Worf is one of the few characters that I'm going to be looking for, especially hoping to get out of that box, because the premiere version of Worf, I have one from First Contact, and I've got the silver bordered version, I think, from the collector's edition, but I never pulled a regular white bordered version of Worf or the Geordie. I haven't gotten that one yet either. So I'm going to be looking for those two, especially.
Oh my, is that really seriously My Little Pony?
Okay.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
That just seems crazy that card game is so expensive.
Well, a lot of the older games, things get hard to find, prices
we bought like a couple, we got a starter decks of that and a box of one of them, and it was fairly cheap because we're like, something fun to try with Isabel. Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, everybody wants it.
Well, it's like the Harry Potter game. The one set they had from Chamber of Secrets is like well over $1,000 a box now.
Alias, I am anxiously waiting for your in-depth deep dive of the Yahtzee lore and culture.
Well, that would be something, wouldn't it?
That could be fun to go and see.
It could be.
To look at the history of Yahtzee.
Anyway, I think I better wrap up. I've got to work tomorrow, so I can't be on too late tonight.
Yeah, we got some
keeping this one fairly simple, but thanks for this little introduction to Star Trek. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope I can
hanging out.
Get to dig into some more at some time in the future.
When we do end this, we'd appreciate if you did just leave a comment with some thoughts on the live stream afterwards. Just have some comments there.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know what you think.
Helps us to gauge interest on how much people actually are interested in this sort of thing. So or if you have other ideas for things that you think would be better, we're keen to listen to those too. What we're able to do is always up for, consideration. But
Yeah.
you never know.
All right. So thanks for watching. I'm not gonna try and rate anybody because I just not
Can't
tonight.
think of anything related to anyway.
But we appreciate you all. Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for dropping by.
I should watch you while eating pizza or spaghetti. Sure. Dinner theater?
Might be something interesting to throw in the background while doing dishes or
Let
something
Barry
like that.
sing one of his songs from one of his
Oh.
musical theater
That could be something.
things. See if anybody that used to be
I'm
in
a
it with
little
him.
out of practice.
Yeah. Let them do a dance. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys soon. And
Have a good night.
yeah, have a good night. Or day or morning, wherever you are. Bye for now.
Live long and prosper.